Settle in and picture a quiet world before the first tremor broke the sea in half. No alarms, no warnings, just the slow unfolding of a new destiny as a colossal silhouette rose from the deep, reminding humanity that it was never alone. This is a universe where steel, memory, and fragile human courage must merge into a single heartbeat to stand against monsters born of another realm. Wherever you are, resting in the dark or drifting towards sleep, let me open the first page of a history once kept hidden. If you enjoy these journeys, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell me where you're listening from, what time it is, and the topics you'd love to explore. Your thoughts may guide our next adventure. When you breathe slowly and picture this world, imagine it balanced on a fragile line between two colossal forces, the wild, unrestrained biology of the kaiju and the heavy engineered resolve of the Jaegers. This is the axis on which the entire Pacific Rim universe turns. Nothing here is subtle. Everything is vast, weighty, and shaped by the clash between what is born and what is built. The Kaiju War stretched from 2013 to 2025, carving a deep scar through human history. Entire coastlines transformed into fortified zones. Cities became evacuation corridors, and along the edges of the world's oceans, the Shatterdomes rose, massive sanctuaries of steel, housing the machines that would become humanity's last defense. Life reorganized itself around a single truth. The ocean was no longer a border, it was a warning. To understand this universe, you must understand its laws, quiet, unchanging rules that govern both flesh and metal. The first is the drift, a neural handshake that binds two pilots into one. A Jaeger is too vast for a single mind to command. It requires a pair of souls that move together, breathing as one. In the drift, memories are transparent, emotions are shared, and trust becomes the very engine of survival. It is both a gift and a risk, because opening your mind also means revealing every wound inside it. The second law is the physics of scale and mass. In this world, nothing moves without weight. Every Jaeger punch must travel through the resistance of its own colossal mass. Every kaiju step displaces oceans. Unlike superhero fantasies, there is no escaping inertia. The world feels heavy because it is heavy. Each movement is a negotiation with gravity itself. And then there is the biotechnology of the Aniverse, the eerie alien knowledge behind the kaiju. These creatures are not born. They are manufactured, grown, tuned, released, each classified from category E to V, each designed with a purpose, each capable of evolving based on the failures of the last. Their makers, the precursors, see humanity not as rivals, but as pests, vermin occupying a world they intend to reclaim. To them, Earth is simply a colony waiting to be emptied. The Jaeger program is humanity's answer to this cold, ancient logic. In a time defined by terror, it became the greatest monument to human willpower, a fusion of neuroscience, industrial engineering, and sheer desperation. Each Jaeger is a declaration that humans are willing to stand upright, even when the sky is falling. But beneath all the machinery and monsters, the Pacific Rim world carries a deeper metaphor, a quiet truth humming beneath the spectacle. To fight together, pilots must first be willing to open their minds to each other, to share pain as readily as strength. The kaiju, in all their perfection, symbolize nature's merciless efficiency, but the Jaegers symbolize something far more fragile and rare, the human desire to connect, to trust, and to overcome what should be impossible. In the end, this universe asks a single question: what holds us together when the world begins to break apart? When we trace the scars of the Kaiju War, we begin where the world first learned to fear its own oceans. San Francisco, on the day history renamed simply as K-Day. Imagine standing at the shoreline as the horizon fractures, quiet at first, like a breath being held by the earth itself. Then the water parts, not with the elegance of myth, but with the violent certainty of something impossibly large, forcing its way into our world. Trespasser rose from that wound in the sea, a silhouette so colossal that skyscrapers looked like soft, brittle ornaments beside it. The city's defenses fired every weapon they possessed, each one disappearing into the creature's hide as though swallowed by night. And when nothing else worked, when tanks, jets, and artillery dissolved into futility, humanity reached for the nuclear option, not as triumph, but as surrender. The explosion ended the attack, and the illusion that humans were safe on their own planet. After San Francisco, the war shifted away from cities to the deep, lonely vastness of the ocean, toward what would be known as the Miracle Mile, a silent, defensive line stretching across international waters. This was not a place marked on any map. It was an understanding, a promise among nations. We meet them here before they ever touch the shore. Picture it now, a darkness thicker than winter, waves rising like black mountains under the moon, and somewhere beneath that abyssal surface, the pulse of something huge approaching. Jaegers waited there, like guardians carved from steel, their lights cutting narrow paths through the storm. Each encounter felt less like battle and more like damming a flood, struggling to hold back a force that wanted only to break through and drown the world. And as the years passed, kaiju grew larger, faster, more relentless, until even this ocean barricade began to crumble. Then there was Hong Kong, glowing defiantly against the night, neon lights reflecting off rain-slick streets like spilled electricity. It became the beating heart of PPDC operations, the city where pilots trained, Jaegers were repaired, and humanity's last strategies were whispered into dim command rooms. The Hong Kong Shatterdome stood like a fortress of steel lungs, breathing out new missions, new hopes, even as the world outside trembled. But the city was also a paradox, vibrant, alive, radiant, with human resilience, and yet constantly overshadowed by silhouettes of kaiju passing between skyscrapers like moving mountains. In those narrow alleys and towering harbors, civilization felt both powerful and fragile, as if one wrong step from a creature born in the Antiverse could erase centuries of human ambition. Across these three landscapes, San Francisco's broken skyline, the silent depths of the Miracle Mile, and Hong Kong's neon battleground, we see the evolution of a war that reshaped the planet. Each place tells a chapter in the story of humanity, confronting its insignificance, then choosing to stand anyway. These battlefields are not just locations, they are memory anchors, marking the moments the world realized what it was up against and what it needed to become. When the world began reshaping itself around the kaiju threat, humanity did not build with hope, it built with fear. And nowhere is that fear more visible, more tangible, than in the colossal structures we left behind. The first of these is the Shatterdome, a fortress of steel and function rising from the coastline like a bunker carved out of exhaustion itself. It was never meant to be beautiful, it was meant to endure. Picture the architecture of a wartime stronghold, thick walls layered in reinforced metal, corridors designed not for comfort, but for survival. Everything dim, heavy, and humming with tension. Even at rest, the structure felt alert, as though it understood it existed on the edge of extinction. Inside, the scale shifts from mere building to cathedral. The Jaeger hangars, towering dozens of stories high, hold machines so large they seem to bend perspective. Walkways crisscross the open space like neural pathways, engineers moving along them with the precision of cells inside a living organism. Below, platforms shake as machinery warms to life, the clang of metal echoing upward in long reverberating notes. For the pilots stepping into this chamber was like entering a monument built in their image, an industrial shrine devoted to human persistence. Further within lies the drift center, the beating heart of the Shatterdome. The atmosphere shifts noticeably here. Conversations drop to whispers, and lights dim into a softer glow, as if the building itself is taking a slow breath. This is where two minds become one, where the neural bridges lie waiting, where memories merge, and where pilots must confront not only the kaiju outside, but the ghosts inside themselves. It carries the quiet reverence of a sacred place, but also the unease of knowing sacrifice happens here every day. The Shatterdome is often called the Church of War, and when you stand in its silence, you understand why. Every vibration in the floor, every shuddering groan of machinery feels like a hymn to survival sung in steel. But not every human structure stood with such conviction. Some were built from desperation, attempts to stop the unstoppable, and none represent that more painfully than the Wall of Life. Stretching along the Pacific coastline, this massive barrier was meant to be humanity's great defensive line, a final physical refusal against the kaiju advance. For a brief moment, people believed in it. The wall became a symbol, a promise, a way to imagine that sheer height and thickness could keep terror at bay. But hope is fragile in a world ruled by giants. When Mutavor tore through the wall in less than an hour, the illusion collapsed with it. The immense structure, built with such cost and urgency, was revealed as nothing more than a delay, a false shield against a threat that did not respect concrete or engineering pride. The Wall of Life became something else after that, a monument to human fear, a reminder that hiding was never a viable strategy, and a quiet confession that humanity could not outbuild the kaiju, only outfight them. And so, the architecture of this era stands as a physical record of our vulnerability. The Shatterdome shows how we rose. The Wall of Life shows how we broke. Between them, the world learned what it meant to survive. To understand the soul of the Pacific Rim universe, you must first understand its colors, not the colors of paint or seasons, but the deep, instinctive hues that seep into every corner of the war, tones that cling to buildings, to metal, to memory itself. In this world, even the light carries meaning. The first of these colors is kaiju blue, a bioluminescent glow that stains everything it touches. It leaks from wounds in monstrous bodies, pooling in streets and seawater like spilled stars. Under moonlight, it flickers with an otherworldly pulse, a reminder that these creatures were not born of Earth. And yet it is toxic, corrosive, suffocating. When kaiju blue spreads across the ground, the land becomes uninhabitable. When it evaporates into the air, it lingers like a sickness. It is the color of contamination, of a world being rewritten cell by cell, a warning that the invasion is not only physical, it is environmental, persistent, and intelligent. Opposite it stands amber orange, the warm industrial glow of humanity's stubborn resilience. It radiates from harbor lamps, factory windows, and the towering structure of the Shatterdome. It's not the cheerful gold of sunlight, but the dim, practical amber of sodium bulbs, lights built not to beautify, but to endure harsh weather, heavy storms, and long nights. This color represents the human spirit during the kaiju war, worn down, exhausted, but still burning. In the neon-drenched nights of Hong Kong, this orange glow becomes the last line of warmth against a sky swallowed by blue threat. These colors paint the emotional spectrum of the world. Kaiju blue for the encroaching unknown, amber orange for humanity's quiet defiance. But beyond color, the world breathes through its weather, and the weather rarely rests. Mornings begin with rain, thin as mist or heavy as grief, falling constantly as if the sky itself is mourning. The rain does more than darken the atmosphere. It adds weight to every scene. It makes Jaeger footsteps thunder against wet pavement, turns battlefields into reflective pools, where neon blurs into trembling streaks of light. Rain is the world's steady reminder that the war has dragged on for years, soaking into steel and spirit alike. The sea, too, is unsettled. Waves crash with violent impatience, churning against breakwaters, as though echoing the restless presence of the kaiju far below. Even on calm days, the ocean feels ominous, too quiet, too dark, too deep. Suffering has texture here. The salt wind carries it, the clouds mirror it, and the water waits with infinite patience. Then there is the fog, thick, low, and relentless. It creeps across harbors, wraps around skyscrapers, and swallows coastlines whole. In the fog, a Jaeger looks like a forgotten titan, and a kaiju silhouette becomes a waking nightmare. The air itself feels alive, shifting and breathing like some vast creature observing from afar. All these elements, darkness, neon reflections, drifting mist, and the constant churn of weather, combine to create a battlefield atmosphere, both melancholic and isolating. When a Jaeger walks into this landscape, it does not stride with the confidence of a hero. It moves like a lone soldier across an endless night, dwarfed by the world around it, illuminated only by flickering lights, barely holding back the dark. In Pacific Rim, atmosphere is not background, it is story. Color is not decoration, it is language. And the sky, the sea, the storms, they are all reminders of how small humanity is and how extraordinary it is that we stood up anyway. When the first kaiju emerged from the broken seam of the Pacific, humanity realized something ancient and humbling. No single nation could stand alone. Out of this fear and a fragile, desperate unity, the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps, or PPDC, was born. It was less a military organization and more a wartime government, forged overnight to manage a threat no political boundary could contain. And in the quiet hours of the night, when the world held its breath, the PPDC became the pulse that kept humanity alive. At the top of this vast structure stood the Marshal, a figure burdened with choices no one should have to make. Their voice carried the weight of continents, their decisions capable of saving cities or condemning them. Beneath the Marshal worked the Rangers, commanders who planned the choreography of each Jaeger deployment, calculating ocean drift patterns, kaiju migration routes, and the thin margins between victory and collapse. Then came the pilots, the ones who stepped into drifting silence and merged their minds for the sake of a world that expected miracles. They were both soldiers and symbols, faces broadcast across emergency networks, whispered about in shelters, painted on walls by children who needed something to believe in. Pilots bore the scars of drift exposure, the emotional fractures shared between two minds, forced to become one, yet they returned to the cockpit because no one else could. Supporting them were the engineers, the crews who climbed across the iron shoulders of sleeping giants, tightening bolts, testing hydraulics, and checking reactor integrity under flickering lights. They kept the Jaegers alive. They rebuilt what the oceans tore down. They worked through nights heavy with the smell of oil and the metallic tang of kaiju residue, knowing each repair could be the difference between survival and annihilation. And deep within the analytical wings of the Shatterdome stood the kaiju analysts, quiet, meticulous minds, mapping the evolving behavior of the enemy. They sifted through carcasses, tracked radiation patterns, charted neurochemical anomalies. Every discovery they made came with a chilling truth. The kaiju were learning, adapting, calculating, and so the analysts became the unseen line of defense, racing to understand an intelligence that wanted nothing but our erasure. Outside the Shatterdome walls, the world changed in quieter, more painful ways. The global economy bent itself around the demands of war. Entire industries were swallowed by the need for nuclear reactors, superalloy manufacturing, and coastal fortifications. Governments nationalized energy grids, redirected steel production, and rationed supplies to keep the Jaegers walking. Nations that once competed now traded raw materials under uneasy treaties, all aware that without cooperation, the oceans would swallow them one by one. Meanwhile, ordinary people lived in a rhythm shaped by alarms and evacuation routes. A culture of constant vigilance emerged. Families memorized siren patterns the way previous generations memorized lullabies. Markets sprung up selling kaiju artifacts, some real, some forged, and in the shadows, kaiju cults chanted that the monsters were divine heralds, that humanity's time had ended, and resistance was a sin against the natural order. Yet, despite all this fear, one symbol stood tall, the Jaeger, steel giants rising above the coastline like myths brought to life. For many, seeing a Jaeger in the distance, its silhouette framed against storm clouds, meant hope. It meant someone was fighting for them, even when the world felt impossibly large and unbearably dark. In this era of dread and resilience, humanity turned its terror into structure, its desperation into strategy, and the PPDC became not just an army, but a testament to what people can build when their survival depends on unity. To understand humanity's defiance in the Kaiju War, you must understand the Jaegers, not merely as machines, but as second bodies built for those who dared to share their minds. Each Jaeger stands like a monument of steel and intention, forged in the image of its pilots and shaped by the era that demanded its birth. The earliest of these titans, the Mark I units, were crude and heavy, born from urgency rather than elegance. They were built in a world still reeling from the shock of K-Day, crafted with whatever technology humanity could piece together fast enough to matter. Their armored frames were thick and unrefined, their movements slow under the burden of their own mass. Nuclear reactors sat inside their chests like unstable hearts, leaking radiation that slowly carved sickness into the bodies of their pilots. And yet these machines were miracles. Each one was proof that humanity would not kneel, even if the cost of standing was poisoning its own heroes. By the time the Mark III generation emerged, the world had changed. Fear had matured into strategy. Technology had caught up to desperation. And at the center of this evolution stood Gypsy Danger, the icon of the Jaeger Golden Age. Its design was balanced, strength tempered with resilience, power matched with reliability. Its weathered metal bore the scratches of countless battles, yet it moved with a grace unusual for its size. Mark III Jaegers could withstand the crushing pressure of the open ocean, navigate storms, and hold the line against kaiju that would have shattered the machines before them. Gypsy became more than a weapon. It became a symbol of equilibrium, proof that humanity could fight without breaking itself in the process. Then came the Mark V units, sleek and sharpened like blades forged in fire. Striker Eureka, the pinnacle of their lineage, embodied speed and precision. Its systems were digital, its response time nearly instantaneous. Where earlier Jaegers fought with brute force, Striker moved like a predator, fast, calculating, ruthless. It represented what the war had become: immediate, escalating, unforgiving. Every piece of its design served the purpose of adaptation, mirroring the evolving ferocity of the kaiju themselves. Yet the true genius of the Jaeger program lay not in metal or engineering, but in the neural handshake, the drift that joined two pilots into one consciousness. Operating a Jaeger required not just knowledge, but vulnerability. Two minds had to open their memories, sync their traumas, share their strengths. Every heartbeat, every instinct, every fragment of fear flowed through this connection. When the drift aligned perfectly, the Jaeger moved like an extension of flesh, a seamless fusion of human intent and mechanical force. In that moment, there was no boundary between the pilots and their creation. They were a single being with a 1,000-ton body and a human soul. Surrounding this core were the unseen layers of the Jaeger ecosystem. The engineers who maintained the limbs of metal giants, the dragon workers who climbed their frames like ants, tending to a living machine, and the AI systems whose calm voices guided pilots through chaos. Weapons varied: plasma casters, chain swords, kinetic arms, designed not for spectacle, but for urgency, for cutting through kaiju hide before the battlefield drowned in toxic blue blood. The Jaegers were never meant to be superheroes. They were warships shaped like people, bound by inertia, limited by physics, powered by sacrifice. And in their footsteps, in the tremor they left behind, you could feel the truth of their existence. Humanity had chosen not to run, but to build giants in its own image and meet the darkness face to face. To understand the kaiju is to understand an enemy that was never meant to coexist with us. They were not born of Earth, nor shaped by evolution's slow patience. They were made, constructed with purpose, engineered with cold precision, deep within the antiverse. In their design, you can sense the intention of their creators: eliminate resistance, reshape the planet, and prepare it for a new lineage of rulers. The first thing any researcher learns about kaiju is their categorical hierarchy. Categories I and I were scouts, testing humanity's reflexes, its weapons, its resolve. Their appearances were devastating, but they were merely questions. What would humans do? How would they fight? How quickly could they adapt? Categories 3 and Ivor were the answers, built larger, faster, equipped with anatomy, specifically tuned to exploit weaknesses in Jaeger armor. They became the backbone of the kaiju assault. These were the creatures that tore cities apart with little effort, each attack a calculated step forward in a war of attrition. And then came Category V, rare towering entities like Slattern, created not for skirmishes, but for strategy. These kaiju were guardians, escorts designed to protect the breach itself. When they appeared, it meant the invasion was entering its final phase. It meant the Antiverse believed humanity had almost run out of time. But what truly makes kaiju terrifying is not their size, it is their shared mind. Every kaiju is connected through a hive network, a biological lattice transmitting data across dimensions. When a kaiju dies, its final sensations, its combat recordings, its failures, all of it is sent back instantly to the precursors. In this way, every battle becomes a lesson. Every loss becomes an upgrade. Every new kaiju walks onto the battlefield with the combined memory of those that fell before it. Humanity fought individuals, but the PPDC was always up against a collective. The manufacturing process in the Antiverse echoes an assembly line more than a womb. Kaiju are grown to specification, musculature tested, armor tuned, nervous systems adjusted. They evolve not through time, but through design revisions, each one purpose-built to counter whatever Jaeger technology last proved effective. It is evolution accelerated beyond nature, weaponized by intelligence that views biology as material rather than miracle. On Earth, their presence is marked by kaiju blue, the glowing toxic blood that seeps into soil and seawater. It burns on contact, corrodes steel, poisons air. Entire districts become uninhabitable within hours. The spread is intentional, a biological cleansing agent meant to scour the planet before colonization. Where kaiju walk, ecosystems collapse. Where they fall, the land slowly dies, and within their bodies lies an anatomy meant for survival under conditions no terrestrial creature could withstand. Silicon-based skeletal structures allow them to withstand tremendous heat and pressure, enabling their journey through the oceanic depths. Their outer armor is made of bone plates that can partially regenerate, an adaptive shield against weapons designed to penetrate. Inside their skulls, two brains divide labor, one to control movement and instinct, and the other to process the constant stream of hive mind signals flowing in from the antiverse. But perhaps the most unsettling truth is this: kaiju are not the invaders, they are the tools, a biological message sent across worlds, declaring that Earth has been claimed and humanity is merely something to be cleared away. To step into a Jaeger is not simply to climb into a machine, it is to open a door inside your own mind. The drift is the law that governs that doorway, a rule woven not from steel or circuitry, but from the fragile, unshielded architecture of human memory. At its core, the drift demands surrender. Two pilots must let their consciousnesses flow together, merging recollections, instincts, fears, and private wounds into a single shared landscape. There is no privacy in this space, no mask, no distance. Every fragment of pain becomes visible. Every joy echoes through both minds. When drift begins, the self becomes divisible, permeable, an awareness that moves with two voices but beats with one pulse. For some, this union is harmonious. For others, especially those carrying deep trauma, the drift becomes dangerous. Pilots with unresolved memories often find themselves pulled into the rabbit hole, a trauma loop replayed with merciless clarity. The drift magnifies personal suffering because the neural link does not discriminate between battlefield instinct and childhood scars. It pulls everything forward at once, and when one pilot falls into a memory too heavy to hold, the other must bear the weight with them. The Jaeger itself falters, stuttering as its mental engine is dragged into pain it cannot categorize. This is why trust becomes the parameter that matters more than strength or training. Trust is the quiet law beneath the drift, the unseen current that determines whether a Jaeger will stand tall or collapse under its own emotional turbulence. When pilots trust one another completely, their movements synchronize into a seamless rhythm. The Jaeger responds as if it were flesh, not alloy. Every stride becomes fluid, every impact controlled. The drift stabilizes into a shared heartbeat, what engineers call the sync ratio, but what pilots describe as feeling each other breathe. Yet when trust weakens, even slightly, when doubt flickers, or resentment pulses beneath the surface, the whole structure trembles. The Jaeger hesitates, missteps, loses its center. The moment of emotional conflict becomes a mechanical flaw, and in a battle against beings designed for annihilation, hesitation is the beginning of defeat. But there is a phenomenon far more unsettling than mistrust: the ghost drift. A pilot who has lost their co-pilot through death, disconnection, or catastrophic neural break sometimes senses the missing presence lingering in the drift, a phantom echo, a memory strong enough to masquerade as a living mind. The brain, accustomed to sharing itself, tries desperately to rebuild the neural bridge that has been severed. Pilots describe hearing breaths that aren't there, feeling reflexes that belong to someone long gone, responding to commands never spoken. Ghost drift is not supernatural. It is heartbreak translated into neurology, grief looping itself through the nervous system until the pilot no longer knows where their consciousness ends and the echo begins. Symptoms range from headaches and disorientation to full blackouts, as though the mind is trying to split itself into two again, refusing to accept that half of it has vanished. The drift set's greatest gift is connection. Its greatest cost is the inability to let go. For every victory a Jaeger achieves, there is an invisible ledger written inside its pilots, tracking every memory shared, every wound reopened, every shadow that followed them back from the drift. In this universe, the mind is both the battlefield and the price of war. To study the kaiju is to witness a form of evolution that defies nature, an evolution not earned through time, but engineered through purpose. In the world of Pacific Rim, the kaiju are not animals, not anomalies, not miracles of biology. They are strategic instruments, each one built with a single intention to refine the invasion with every attack. In their design, you can feel the cold efficiency of the precursors, the unseen architects guiding this war from another dimension. The first law of kaiju evolution is simple, terrifying, and ruthlessly effective. Every death becomes data. When a kaiju falls, its final moments travel instantly through the hive network, streaming back into the aniverse. Every sensation felt during battle, pressure, impact, stress fractures, chemical changes, becomes a record. Every tactic used by Jaegers becomes part of an ongoing analysis. To the precursors, a kaiju corpse is not a failure. It is a report card, a lesson, the blueprint for a better weapon. And so the next kaiju that emerges is never the same. It arrives stronger where its predecessor was weak, adapted to counter new strategies, optimized for the next confrontation. Humanity evolves across generations. Kaiju evolve across deployments. As their understanding deepens, the tone of the war shifts. Where once a single kaiju landing was catastrophic enough, the precursors begin escalating the pattern. Double events, two kaiju emerging simultaneously, test the resilience of multi-Jaeger coordination. The attacks feel like synchronized waves, designed to see how humanity splits its forces, how quickly it panics, how well its pilots maintain drift coherence under pressure. Then come the triple events, which are not tests, but declarations. These are the moments where the war reaches a fever pitch. Kaiju arriving in brutal succession, tearing through defenses before they can fully reset. A triple event is the invasion pushing toward its endgame. Overwhelm, destabilize, and collapse every human barrier before adaptation can occur. But the most unsettling law of all lies beneath the surface, in the toxic glow of kaiju blue. Humanity once believed kaiju were merely destroyers, creatures sent to crush cities and break armies, but their blood reveals a deeper strategy. Kaiju blue seeps into soil, poisoning plant life. It spreads across ecosystems, suffocating marine life. It corrodes metals, destabilizes infrastructure, and lingers in the air as particulate haze. What seems like battlefield residue is in truth a weapon. Kaiju are terraforming agents, walking catalysts, designed to make Earth incompatible with human biology, then perfectly suited for their creators. Every attack becomes a step toward ecological erasure. Every battle leaves behind wounds in the planet that do not heal. Little by little, the air thickens with alien toxins. The oceans darken, the land weakens. The invasion is not merely physical, it is atmospheric, chemical, evolutionary. And when viewed through this lens, the kaiju are not soldiers, they are pioneers. the first wave of a species preparing a world for colonization. In their footsteps, Earth becomes something else, something unrecognizable, something ready for the arrival of beings who have already decided we do not belong. Every great conflict carries a rhythm, an ebb and flow that shapes the fate of civilizations. The Kaiju War was no different. It unfolded in phases, each one etched deeply into the memory of the world, each revealing a truth humanity was not yet ready to accept. To study this war is to trace its heartbeat, its rise, its weakening, and the moment it nearly went silent. The war began in 2013, and the years that followed, 2013 to 2018, would later be remembered as the heroic age. This was a time when humanity believed in its own ingenuity, when the Jaeger program shone like a beacon against the darkness rising from the Pacific. With the Miracle Mile strategy in place, Jaegers were deployed quickly and decisively, intercepting kaiju far from the cities they sought to destroy. Nations that once clashed over borders now shared blueprints, metals, and mines. The world felt unified, electrified by the hope that cooperation could rewrite destiny. Pilots became legends. Children learned their names as if they were constellations. Cities rebuilt themselves with new confidence, believing the war was something humanity could outmaneuver, that monsters, no matter how large, could be cataloged, confronted, and controlled. But the rhythm of war shifted. From 2019 to 2024, the world entered what historians later called the decline. Kaiju began to evolve beyond expectation. Larger bodies, denser armor, new capabilities that defied earlier predictions. Category 3 became common. Category 4 appeared with alarming frequency, and with every defeat, the precursors learned more, adjusting their designs like master craftsmen refining a blade. Jaegers, once triumphant, began to fall faster than they could be built. Factories strained. Budgets shrank. The drift technology, revolutionary as it was, failed to advance quickly enough to match the rising tide. And in the face of growing casualties, governments panicked. They redirected funds away from mobility and toward fortification, constructing the Wall of Life, a colossal boundary built from fear rather than strategy. Its failure was immediate. Mutivore towed through it in less than an hour, demonstrating a truth too bitter to ignore. Humans could not hide from the ocean. By 2025, the war had reached its breaking point. The PPDC faced extinction. Only a handful of Jaegers remained operational, and even they were battered from years of unrelenting combat. But from this desperation emerged a final decisive act known as Operation Pitfall. Rather than defend, humanity chose to attack. Gypsy Danger, weathered, aging, but still standing, carried the fight directly into the breach itself. With its nuclear heart burning brighter than ever, it plunged into the alien gateway and detonated, severing the passage between dimensions. The breach collapsed, the ocean stilled, and for the first time in 12 years, the world exhaled. But the laws of this war are not so easily dismissed. A collapsed breach does not mean a defeated enemy. It means a pause, a momentary silence in a cycle older and more deliberate than humanity understands. For somewhere in the antiverse, the architects of this invasion are waiting, watching, calculating, and should the conditions align once more, the cycle may begin again. Until then, the world rests, quiet, wounded, and aware of the truth. Extinction comes in waves, and this was only the first. Every great conflict carries a rhythm, an ebb and flow that shapes the fate of civilizations. The Kaiju War was no different. It unfolded in phases, each one etched deeply into the memory of the world, each revealing a truth humanity was not yet ready to accept. To study this war is to trace its heartbeat, its rise, its weakening, and the moment it nearly went silent. The war began in 2013. In the years that followed, 2013 to 2018, would later be remembered as the heroic age. This was a time when humanity believed in its own ingenuity, when the Jaeger program shone like a beacon against the darkness rising from the Pacific. With the Miracle Mile strategy in place, Jaegers were deployed quickly and decisively, intercepting kaiju far from the cities they sought to destroy. Nations that once clashed over borders now shared blueprints, metals, and mines. The world felt unified, electrified by the hope that cooperation could rewrite destiny. Pilots became legends. Children learned their names as if they were constellations. Cities rebuilt themselves with new confidence, believing the war was something humanity could outmaneuver. That monsters, no matter how large, could be cataloged, confronted, and controlled. But the rhythm of war shifted from 2019 to 2024. The world entered what historians later called the decline. Kaiju began to evolve beyond expectation. Larger bodies, denser armor, new capabilities that defied earlier predictions. Category 3 became common. Category 5 appeared with alarming frequency, and with every defeat, the precursors learned more, adjusting their designs like master craftsmen, refining a blade. Jaegers, once triumphant, began to fall faster than they could be built. Factories strained, budgets shrank. The drift technology, revolutionary as it was, failed to advance quickly enough to match the rising tide. And in the face of growing casualties, governments panicked. They redirected funds away from mobility and toward fortification, constructing the wall of life, a colossal boundary built from fear rather than strategy. Its failure was immediate. Mutivore tore through it in less than an hour, demonstrating a truth too bitter to ignore. Humans could not hide from the ocean. By 2025, the war had reached its breaking point. The PPDC faced extinction. Only a handful of Jaegers remained operational, and even they were battered from years of unrelenting combat. But from this desperation emerged a final, decisive act known as Operation Pitfall. Rather than defend, humanity chose to attack. Dipsy Danger, weathered, aging, but still standing, carried the fight directly into the breach itself. With its nuclear heart burning brighter than ever, it plunged into the alien gateway and detonated, severing the passage between dimensions. The breach collapsed. The ocean stilled, and for the first time in 12 years, the world exhaled. But the laws of this war are not so easily dismissed. A collapsed breach does not mean a defeated enemy. It means a pause, a momentary silence in a cycle older and more deliberate than humanity understands. For somewhere in the Aniverse, the architects of this invasion are waiting, watching, calculating. And should the conditions align once more, the cycle may begin again. Until then, the world rests, quiet, wounded, and aware of the truth. Extinction comes in waves, and this was only the first. In the end, Pacific Rim reminds us that humanity's greatest strength was never the steel of its Jaegers, but the fragile courage of two minds willing to open themselves to each other. The kaiju came from distant dimensions, yet the truest battlefield was always within us, where fear, memory, and hope quietly collide. To face the monsters outside, we must first face the ones we carry inside. Thank you for wandering through these hidden files of the Kaiju War with me. If you hear distant waves tonight, perhaps they are echoes of the Jaegers resting beneath the cold sea. Sleep well in a world where fear can bring us closer, not apart.